Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Chem Valley Show. I got another great guest today, someone who I had the pleasure of throwing through a door at the start of last year in 2020, and was probably the memory of 2024. Oh, there's a picture right there. I didn't actually throw him through a door. There was some people who helped me out, of course. And joining me now, he is the city and county councillor, Brian White. He's been a man of many hats. He's musician, he's a producer, he's run his own production company for 20 years. He went to Niagara College in Niagara. He's joining me now. Brian White, how's it going today, Brian?
Not bad, you piece of shit. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's been almost a year since we've seen each other. Actually, yeah, it's been almost a year since we've seen each other last. So
yeah,
I thought we could bury the hatchet and have a nice little interview tonight and talk about some things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over it, kind of. I mean, if you consider the physical scars, being thrown through the table there, but
I see you've been doing DDPY to make up for that. Obviously, is that helping out with the injury?
Yeah,
because I'm still getting the emails and the bills in the mail every month from you claiming to be hurt, but
yeah, I mean, that was serious, man. That was serious business. My shoulder's really messed up, you know.
Yeah,
but,
like this. And I think my favorite part is this part where I bring you out and you try to make the peace. Here.
There are no friends in wrestling. Hey, that's not how you get a championship, man.
Father and son.
You think you're ready for a Chem Valley Wrestling Championship match? Next show.
You brought it up, so I thought I had to show the video to all the people watching right now and at least let them know what we're talking about if they weren't in attendance that night.
Well, to be fair, you brought it up in your intro. However, which is why I called you a piece of shit. But that was fun to watch, actually. I hope you enjoyed that. The pain and agony that you inflicted on my body at your command was beyond recognition.
I enjoyed it.
It was an 11. It was a 12 on the 10 scale, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Tyson did the job that I set him out to do. Well, I should say the Dukes family. We do have lots to talk about today. As I said before, you've worn many hats. You've been a city and Sarnia councillor now for 8 years. Is that right?
This is 6+ now. So
6+.
Yeah, this will be by the end of this term. It'll have been 8.
Mm-hmm. And I think the first time I met you was actually when I worked at the mall. I was working at a store. I worked there for like 5 years, actually. This is the first year I didn't work there because of the pandemic and everything, but the big leagues. And we were like it was my first year working there, and we were a little kiosk that year. And I remember you were walking through the mall handing out flyers, and it was actually I don't even know. I think I might have just turned 18, so I might have just been able to start voting and whatnot. So you were kind of campaigning, I believe, for the election and whatnot. And it was the first time I had the opportunity to meet you. You took the time to talk with me and kind of just honestly tell me some things I didn't know that I needed to hear. So let's start off with talking about how you got into politics and how you got your current job.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. And that was fun too. I certainly enjoy that. Meeting, especially younger people when I'm campaigning, is probably the most gratifying. But really, anybody who says they've never voted before, and then as long as they are open-minded and we can have a conversation, that's the most gratifying part of the job for sure. But when I was 18, I was hanging out with some people that were political, and I sort of dabbled in it just a brief bit at the time. I had long hair and a goatee. And didn't look like your typical politician, but I ended up getting to do some cool stuff.
Did you tell me stories of hanging out with the Bushes over in the States?
Yeah.
So
it was cool. Like it was surreal. Like I just ended up finding myself in weird situations that, especially somebody who isn't exactly conservative,
right? But I remember you telling me too, also, that you your first, you thought you were you thought you were a total different than what you actually are, what you stand for. You thought you were something total opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all go through that. We go through growth, and here's the thing: there are great people that fit along the whole spectrum, right? The political spectrum. And I was hanging out with some really great people who were conservative when I was in my teens. And so they welcomed me in, and I got to participate in a lot of cool stuff. I even volunteered for Kim Campbell when she became Prime Minister of Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. Like I got to go to Ottawa and meet people and do stuff and learn about the business. A lot of it actually kind of turned me off at the time. But within all of that, there were some amazing people that I met. And obviously I was building skills and I was learning things that I wouldn't have been able to learn just by sitting in my basement, right? So it was kind of cool. And then over the years, working in documentary and meeting people and changing my focus in documentary from wanting to be like all music based or wanting to be a Much Music VJ to start understanding that the medium meant something and could affect change. I had an argument with really good friends of mine who like basically had to say, "You're not conservative. What are you thinking? Like, that's not who you are." Like, "But I've always voted that way." Yeah, but that's not who you are. And then over those conversations, and then with my mother-in-law as well, and her father, so my grandpa-in-law at the time, he's long since passed, but we would have good arguments that I couldn't win. And they were both very left, very, very left. And when I would sort of concede the argument, I'd go, "Man, these people are making some sense to me." So I couldn't counter it. And then that's sort of where I started to recognize who I was and how I thought about the world. And when I eventually moved back to Sarnia, having met some really great people in politics and amazing people in documentary who've changed the world, I wanted to make change here.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you went to school for broadcast and television journalism, or and that was at Niagara. Did you ever think that you were going to go into take the path that you have now? Obviously, back then, going to school.
Well, because I dabbled in it before, it was always sort of there. But I actually, to be honest with you, thought I'd left it behind. Yeah. I thought I'd left it behind, and it was just going to inform who I was going out into the world. Happy New Year's, John, by the way. I see.
Yeah, John from London.
But I really thought I'd left that in, the in the recipe box, that was going to be just part of what made me who I was going to be as a filmmaker. Even when I went to college, I thought I was going there to be a Much Music VJ. And then within 3 years, I came out making documentaries and loving being behind the camera and working with real life stories, because real life people are far more fascinating to me than fictional characters.
How did you get into that? Was it at school, or did you kind of like into the documentary side of things? Because I know you've made a lot of really great documentaries and worked with a lot of people creating some really good documentaries. How did you get into all that?
Well, again, the seeds were planted early. I see Trivia Tuesday reference there. So my early days in Channel 6 before I went to, which is now my TV here in Sarnia. I got to do everything there. I got to host shows. I got to direct, hockey. I got to make shows that were out in the field.
Oh, that's amazing.
As they say, yeah, I got to do tons of stuff and edit and direct and, be guests on other shows. I got to go to PBS and be a guest chef with Red Green's wife, Mareg Smith.
No way.
I got to do all kinds of really cool stuff, and so I'd had all of these experiences, and there was, when I got to college, and we had to do everything. We had to be radio broadcasters in the first year, television hosts, television production, do television production, which I already have a lot of experience with because of Cogeco, and a lot of radio experience already for having done some ads for the place I worked at and stuff like that. So that first year, the only thing I really wasn't comfortable with was making films, like actually shooting on films. And we learned very quickly how to shoot and process film and all of that stuff. So actual 16 millimeter film. And as we got further along into second year, I had to make a decision. Am I going to go into TV? Am I going to go into radio? Am I going to go into film? And I just fell in love with film. And it was the least, because I should say, like after the first year, I was voted by my peers to be the first one to make the first $1 million. So I had this amazing confidence of everybody that I was in class with. And yet I decided to take, and I won best radio broadcaster and best sportscaster. And then I chose film, which was the least promising financially. But I just fell in love with it. And I knew that I could do some really, really cool stuff. Because at that point, I really wanted to make music documentaries. I was like, I don't want to be a Much Music VJ. I mean, if it comes, it comes. But what I really want to do is make music documentaries. I want to follow musicians around and make really cool stuff about bands and people that.
Is that where it started out? Because I know you were a musician as well yourself. When did you start playing music and getting into that?
Well, that was high school. So high school bands. Grade 9, I took music at St. Pat's, and I didn't get to play the instruments I wanted to because they went alphabetically, and my last name is W, so I got the tuba. Yeah. But I had a great time with that, and I learned a lot about music. And over the next year, I ended up buying some other instruments that I really liked, and sort of teaching myself. And through high school, getting together with like-minded people and starting bands and teaching myself guitar, teaching myself bass, and bass was my main instrument. So that was it. And realized, like we'd been gigging and doing some really cool stuff and writing our own material with my one band. But my friends ended up going off to university, which made it very difficult to sustain, writing and practicing and setting up gigs when I didn't know which friend or which band member was going to ever be available. Right. They all go to different cities too for school. So I was the only one left in Sarnia, I think. No, I had Daryl with me for a while, and then he went away too. So our singer. So when that kind of dissipated, Daryl and I ended up doing a duo thing for a while, and I ended up playing guitar instead of bass and singing backup or singing harmony. And then, it just kind of got lonely, and I really wanted to go to school for TV production. And that's when I focused, and I spent a couple of years with Cogeco volunteering and building up my resume and my skill set so that I could pick the college I really wanted to go to, and then just get on with my life.
Were you born here in Sarnia?
Yeah, born and raised.
Yeah. Born and raised, yeah.
So, I think like most people, I left like most people I know at the time with no plans of ever coming back. But yeah.
Right, yeah. So where did you go after school? Straight back to Sarnia?
No, we moved to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I had family ties there. My father, who I didn't grow up with, but knew of and knew I had my roots. He was from Nova Scotia. So in the third year of college, I started focusing my thesis work on the film industry in Nova Scotia. Right before the third year, my wife and I took a vacation. We just I already shit talked him, Ryan. I'm gonna get him whenever we can. Just keep showing it, buddy. You're only making me mad again. It's been a whole year. I almost got over it, but now I'm just all angry again. That summer, right before my third year, I went to Nova Scotia with my wife for a week, and we ended up just falling in love with it out there. And like I said, I focused my thesis work on the film industry out there, met a lot of people, kind of like what you're doing for school, making phone calls, making connections, doing my research about the business there. So that
the film industry is pretty they take it pretty seriously out there, right? Like,
oh yeah, it was, especially at the time, it was huge. It was, it is still a great television production ground, and a lot of independent films still get worked on there. But at the time, in particular, their focus was growing it and making it like the third destination in Canada. A lot of period pieces were being shot there, and the Titanic kind of put it on the map.
That's amazing.
And they were investing a lot of money into tax credits and tax rebates and things like that. So by the time I got out there, they still didn't have a film program at their colleges. And one of the things I kept hearing from producers as I was doing my research for my thesis was, we need people with skills to move here. And I kept thinking, I'm on my way. Like, here we go. I've got skills. I've got an education. My third year production from Niagara College ended up screening at the Atlantic Film Festival, literally 11 days after I moved to Halifax.
Wow.
Which was massive for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of, and then it got picked up by Bravo Canada for 3 years. So I kind of showed up thinking like, I've arrived, people, welcome to Halifax. The city is mine. But it ends up being what it is, and it was a lot of hard work, a lot of barriers in place. Whether I thought I was coming in on a lightning bolt or not, the reality was once I landed on the ground, I had to I do a lot of networking and find my ways in and out of productions that sometimes led to other things, and a lot of times they didn't. But it was a grind, that's for sure.
For sure. And I know your wife is a teacher, and I was looking on your, not Indeed. I'm having a brain fart right now, where I do all my LinkedIn. There we go. I always mix up the two for some reason, LinkedIn and Indeed. I don't know why I always do that, but I was looking on there and I seen you do some supply teaching. I don't want to say the name wrong. And I know there's a really cool story behind it, which is why I brought it up. I've had the pleasure of doing some car drives with you down to Midwestern Wrestling, the way home from Border Town Wrestling. And we've also had a lot of really good talks, just me and you, when we met up in the past before we, before things went south. But let's talk a little bit about this and your time here. I dug up that picture earlier. Tell us a little bit about that, and you can go ahead and pronounce the name because I don't want to do it wrong.
Wemindji.
And that's in Quebec, right?
Yeah, the Cree Nation of Wemindji. So if we're here in Sarnia and we were driving straight through, it would take about 21 hours to get there north. It's on James Bay, right on James Bay, about halfway up James Bay on the Quebec side. Cree is their first language. English is their second language. And then some people also know a little bit of French up there, especially since they have to interact with the French, the provincial government there for many things. But it's a whole other world. And when we moved out to Nova Scotia, my wife was accepted at Acadia University for her Bachelor of Education. So while I was grinding it out in the film scene, we, were commuting every day, or she was, to Wolfville, Nova Scotia, to finish a 2-year Bachelor of Education. program. And I'd done so much in 2 years that I really felt confident by the time that 2 years was done, that putting our focus on her and getting her started in the teaching business was the right thing to do, because I'd made connections, I'd worked, I figured I could shoot projects. I had my own camera and my own editing equipment. So I figured I could fly in and out of wherever I landed and do work as needed. And that the right thing to do was to just find a place where Jessie was able to teach. So through a job fair, she got a bunch of offers in different places. I mean, from the Yukon to like the far north in Quebec, northern Alberta. We just fell in love with the people that were there from the Cree school board, representing 9 communities on James Bay. And there was an opening at this school in Wemindji. And we took the leap and moved up there and spent a couple of years there, which is where, my daughter was conceived, not born, because they don't have the facilities there. So we had to leave a couple of months before she was born. Yeah. Which was kind of frightening. Even that story, I mean, it wasn't, it's what could have been, right? What could have been, I had to send my wife south on a plane, and then I had to drive the 9+ hours on the isolated highway, and then another couple hours to get to the town where she flew to, so I could then pick her up and we could drive all the way back down to Sarnia. And we got here just in time. The baby was born a week later. So, but I couldn't take the chance of having her on a remote highway where you go 387 kilometers between, a gas station and the nearest town. Mm-hmm. So,
what was it like living there?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was, your whole focus is different in a place like that, especially as an outsider when we're, that's a great shot. That's actually from way back then. The other shot was from a few years ago when I went back to do film workshops.
Which we will talk about. I want to talk about that too, because I know you and Jason go up there?
Yeah. Simon. Yep.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that, or we can go into it right now if you want. Because was that just kind of built off of what you did in the past there, going up with Jason? And
yeah, well, Jason's a good friend of mine, and he was, moving on with his career as a former NHLer and professional hockey player, and we had a lot of conversations about, his sobriety, my sobriety. We both share that. We have that in common. That was in Radisson, Quebec, the most northern part of the James Bay Highway, this outpost town where we drove from Wemindji, where we are right there. And
that's working with the students there?
Yeah. So that's
incredible.
That's on the iMac that I brought up and left for them there. And Jason was showing them some skating footage that we shot the day.
Do they not have a lot of that stuff there?
They do now. They've invested a lot of money in their community center. It's a really neat place, because as far as remote communities goes, they've done some incredible investing over the years in themselves. So in a lot of job training for a remote community as far north as they are, it's unusual to have paved roads and sewers in the roads, and those are things we take for granted and don't even think about. But up there, most northern communities are dirt roads, and it impacts your breathing and other things. So they invested early on. This is a really cool municipal geek that I am story, that when they got some payouts for the Quebec hydro projects, a lot of the communities, including Wemindji, weren't connected to the James Bay Highway at all. They're about 100 kilometers offset from this James Bay to service the Quebec hydro dams at the northern tip of it, like in that community Radisson where you saw that one picture from. But when they got a payout from Quebec Hydro, a lot of communities built roads, including Wemindji, to connect themselves. So they were fly-in only until that point, or snowmobile until that point. And about 5 years before we moved up, they built a highway, so 96 kilometers of gravel road. But what they did, which was really smart, in my opinion, is some other communities used the money and built a paved road to connect to the James Bay Highway. Wemindji spent a tenth of the money, built a gravel road, then bought paving equipment and went and serviced the James Bay Highway and other communities. So they actually didn't pave their own road. They saved enough money to buy into a business and then make money servicing other people. And then they built this economic development concept and continued to thrive. So over the years, they've got a wonderful community center. They've got paved roads. They've got their own water treatment plant. They've got really some incredible infrastructure and highly educated people living in the community, which is just an incredible win for living in the North. But,
is it great to see where they've came, like from when you were there?
Oh, the 10 years or 11 years it was in between, I couldn't have imagined the growth. I remember sitting with the economic development officer all those years ago, because we were talking about housing and our options and stuff. And I could have dreamt of success, but I had no idea. When I went back there, I was absolutely blown away. The community had almost tripled in size in terms of building new houses. Like I said, community center, they built a second school so they could actually split the elementary school from the high school. An indoor pool, a professional basketball court, like just beautiful stuff for the kids to do there. And their community center is, equipped with pool tables and PS4s and, now editing equipment and cameras that they paid for me to bring up there. So it's a really, really cool place. It'll always have a special place in my heart. And at the time when Jason was talking about going on to motivational speaking, I just made a phone call. Jason was sitting at my house, and I made a quick phone call up there. And by the time I was done off the phone, Jason and I were making plans, to head up there.
And that's kind of taken off for him too, right? Like the motivational speaking. He's going other places now and kind of speaking all over.
Yeah, no, he said that's his career right now. I mean, he's doing, two things. He's speaking and offering hope and leadership in so many First Nation communities across North America, like the United States as well, and Canada. And he's branching out into other ventures because of those contacts. And he's doing extremely well. His hockey camps that he would travel around with as well. So he'd bring a couple of options with him while he was there. He could speak. Also do a week's worth of hockey camp or whatever they needed.
I had the pleasure of doing some road trips with him down to Brantford when he played for the Brantford Blast there and won the Allen Cup in 2008. Went down with him, Aaron Brand and Jeff Brown. And I'll never forget those car drives because, I heard a lot of really cool stories from back in the day.
That's awesome. No, he's a great guy.
I'm sure you did too. Let's move on though, just because I don't want to take too much more of your time tonight. I know a few years ago was kind of when we reconnected. It was my first show I ever did actually at the Station Music Hall. You brought your boy out for his first show. There's Seamus there. It's an old picture. Let's talk a little bit about that night and kind of how it went for you guys, because that's kind of where all this started, the Brian White wrestling career. And here's a great shot of kind of what started it all.
Yeah, for those that couldn't see that was my son chopping somebody. So MVP, who is actually one of the biggest stars the WWE has right now, is holding back a wrestler by the name of Sebastian Suave, and my son ran up and got to chop Sebastian in the chest, which was kind of fun. So we'd never I grew up watching wrestling, right? I remember WrestleMania 1 in the build up to it. I was watching wrestling before WrestleMania 1. So, I mean, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. I've always paid attention to it, even in years when I wasn't necessarily watching it. But because of the internet, I would always read up on wrestling news and just keep up on what the business side of it and the entertainment side of it. It's always had a special place in my heart. And at that point, we never really watched it with Seamus. I would sort of sneakily watch it in my office late at night when I wanted to watch wrestling, but I wouldn't really let him see it until that point. But and there were some reasons, health reasons with my kids and things that I just thought was not the right time for him to learn some of those skills. But at that point, I thought that was the right thing to do. I saw the ad for the show, and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy 2 tickets. He's had a great year at school. He won, his academic award.
Yeah, it was on July 8th, 2017, if you can believe it's been that long.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'll never forget that night because, it seems like yesterday. I was me and Sebastian were just going to Burger King before the show and getting him a couple sandwiches before the show. And now all this time's passed, and where we've come to, it's pretty insane. Right after that show, I remember getting a video from Sebastian, and it kind of led to a really cool promo that you did that I just kind of snuck on there. Let's show it here because this kind of blew up. It went pretty viral.
Regrettably make my way back to Sarnia on September 30th, where I will make an example of you and anyone else in that filthy little town if you put your filthy little vermin paws on. Regrettably make my way back to Sarnia on September 30th, where I will make an example.
Yeah, so the video went on, and you went into like probably one of the best promos I've seen in a while, going after him, and that just kind of built into you ended up having you had to be handcuffed to Sebastian's manager, and it just kind of built from there, and things blew up. We got CBC national attention. I remember that article just for the headline, of course.
Yeah, that was a fun interview. Yeah, it made Canoe. It made lots of news across the country, which was exciting. Obviously, I didn't expect that day that I was tagged in a video with a wrestler calling me out. I was like, whoa, this wrestler dude's calling me out, right? And that was pretty cool because you and I just. You didn't even really tell me what was going to happen. It was just like, hey, man, you put on this hell of a show at the station. And I sort of did a quick count in my head. And I thought, man, if we can't sustain this here, like if we don't get like 50 more people per show, this will never come here again. Like,
right.
These shows are expensive and the talent was so off the charts. It was so good. I thought there's no way they're going to sustain this if we don't get people out. I'm like, hey man, let me know if I can be of any help. Like I want to see wrestling continue in Sarnia. And then, as you said, it sort of drew you working with Sebastian drew me into the storyline to help get some attention for wrestling in Sarnia. And then by like the third show, right before the show, we're talking and they're like, hey, do you think you'd want to like do a tag team match at the next show? When I was like, hell yeah. What are you talking about? Of course I would do that. So
what were your first thoughts when you found out about that like tag team match? Like did you initially think that I got to go start training right now, or were you just gonna kind of take it as it comes? And
I was going to train. Train. Yeah. By that point, I knew Tyson was in London, but I just didn't really know how to go about that. I had to just, so I jumped before I looked for sure because, why wouldn't I? Like, I want to be I've always wanted to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Not long after the show, Tyson Dukes reached out to me and said, hey, Brian, we got to get you to London. Because he had just opened his wrestling school like 3 months before. So he's like, we'll get you to London here and we'll put you through the ringer a little bit and get you ready for that match. Of course, I'm again, I know enough about the business and I've done some acting and I've done some other things that I knew from a character perspective, which I think is why it worked in the first couple of shows. Like I could sell immediately. So when I got handcuffed to the top rope and they were stomping the bejesus out of my chest and all that other stuff, like I'm using all of the years of me playing with my wrestling dolls and being Howard Finkel and announcing and commentating and all the stuff I did as a kid. I'm using all of that, right? And so I knew I'd be okay. I just knew that, man, I almost look like Elvis there. Hey, what's that hairline? That's MVP, man. That's awesome. And my boy. Yeah, who knew it would come to that? And have great guys like Aiden Prince encouraging me. But Tyson, and that's just ridiculous. That's so much fun. That right there.
Yeah, that was incredible.
That was awesome. I never thought I'd hold a title up, so thank you for that opportunity too. I never thought I'd stand on a second rope turnbuckle, holding a belt up in the air with the crowd chanting, and cheering, and then having two guys that I'm used to watching on TV regularly tear it up in front of 15,000 people, say, "Hey, put the belt in your mouth and pose like this," like that was ridiculous. That was so much fun. But yeah, Tyson took care of me, and but I knew early on that I had to do the work, and I was never going to go out and be that goofball like you see on WWE sometimes when they bring in, special guests, and when they get hit, they look stupid falling and they look stupid climbing in the ring and all that stuff. I was never going to do that, because these guys I knew worked their asses off, and I never for 1 second wanted to make it look any worse, just because I'm a special guest and I'm a gimmick. Or whatever,
your first experience in the ring, you broke your hand, right? So did you get discouraged after that? Like, was there ever a time where you're like, I can't do this anymore? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I talked on the phone with Smash and talked about maybe a second opportunity to even go into a singles match or something at some point, but as the months went on, I thought, you know what, I guess I'm done. Like, I'm done. This is fair. I had the most incredible experience of my life. I lived a childhood dream, and I was totally good with that. Like, I was I know, I saw his face, Sean. I saw his face when you ran my greeting. But he over the months, I thought, I'm good. Like, I'm old, right? So I can't train. I'm not going to do it. So, but then you brought Destiny to town and invited me to participate in the Battle Royal. And at that point, I was 9 months out of breaking my wrist. So I hadn't trained again. I just got in the ring, and it was like I was still back at Tyson's school. I'd only done like 6 or 7 training sessions with him, but it was enough to help me through the Battle Royal, to not die. And then when I got out of there, I was ready. I was ready to train, and then the stuff with Holden Albright picked up, and the promoter from Destiny talked about having me on a couple more shows along, with your encouragement. And so then I was ready to train, and I just dove in. At that point, I dove in. I said, I'm a professional wrestler now. I'm going to go in and I'm going to train, and I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm not going to, just be the gimmick and teach me what I need to know to survive. I'm going to go right back to the beginning and start going to Tyson's school every day that I'm available. And I mean, every day that I was available. So it was a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday night. And if I didn't have a meeting to go to, and sometimes I left meetings a little early so I could get on the road, but if I was available, get dinner ready early for my family, kiss my wife on the cheek, grab my son, stick him in the car, and off we were to London.
I think that's a sacrifice you have to make. I said it on my previous episode. I think right before all this COVID stuff happened, me and you, actually, I was talking about how I started to go down with you, and I saved up the money, ponied up the 500 registration fee for my T-shirt and my shorts and everything that's needed to register. I went there for a month with you. I was working at the time. I was working 10-hour days. So I was working like 6:30 to 5 p.m. And there was a group from my work. They were like a temporary agency, but they were there every day, luckily. So, and I was pretty good friends with a few of them, and I managed to work out a ride every day. So I knew that if I wanted to do this, and I'd have to do what it takes to get there every day. And I knew that you were driving there, but obviously my work was a little bit it was out of the way every day for you to come grab me. So I figured something out, and ended up getting to go down for about a month of it. I'd say a little bit over a month, and I really enjoyed my time there. It was a lot of fun. I wish this COVID stuff wouldn't have happened, because I think I probably still would have stuck with it. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, we had some momentum there, and you were picking up some stuff really quickly, and I was actually quite happy to see that. And and then even driving home after together, being able to talk wrestling and talk about the future and opportunities about Chem Valley and other things that we could do with wrestling. It was a really exciting time, and obviously, it's a pause now at my age. What does the pause mean? I'm not sure, but I didn't let the shutdown stop me from training. I just couldn't go to the dojo anymore and take bumps. But
You said it at your age. Like, was that ever something that was in like the back of your head while you were training with all these kids that are like in their 20s and like
always,
yeah,
always.
What do you think? What do you think Tyson's thoughts were when you first came out and like?
Tyson's an old school cat, right?
Yeah.
So he has this mentality that, I mean, first off, he opened the door wide open for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he was never going to hand it to me. You know what I mean? So, and I recognize that I'm mature enough. I've been around business of many different kinds for enough years to know that I have enough respect for what people do and that I'm nothing special. When I stepped in that room, nobody there. It's not that they didn't like me because they all accepted me. All of the young people. I was the only one that was hung up on my age, to be honest with you. I'm 2-3 years older than Tyson, the guy training me. So he opened the door and he allowed it to be whatever I wanted it to be. And every time I put a barrier in front of myself, I would clear my own barrier. I never really had Tyson putting barriers in front of me. I mean, he wanted me to stand in line with every other student. So I wasn't going to show up and not have to do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and run the ropes for 15 minutes or whatever the hell else, he could conjure up. I was never going to get away with not doing that just because I was a special event kind of guy.
Right.
And that's the way I loved it. And that was so good for me because it changed my mentality. And so the thing is as I saw other people starting to drop off and not show up anymore, I ended up just getting into really good shape.
Yeah.
Learning the skills from some of the best people there. Not only Tyson, obviously, but his first students who, again, took me under their wing. And if I asked something, they had an answer for me. If I wanted to try something, they were open to me trying it. If my son asked politely if he could get in the ring and roll around a bit, Tyson was more than happy to let him do it. So, I mean, they just opened up the door in every way imaginable. And the only one hung up about the age was me.
Yeah.
And once I was open-minded enough to realize that they didn't care about that I was a city councillor, they didn't care about any of that stuff. It didn't make me more special, which I never acted like it anyway. That I was just one of them.
Yeah.
No matter what. And it was an unbelievable feeling of acceptance. And to be honest with you, I haven't had that in a long, long time. Nobody there was trying to stab me in the back. Nobody there was trying to trip me up and hope that I made mistakes. When I made mistakes, the boys and the girls, the people in the ring were there to pick me up and show me again and work through it again and
that's what I loved about that place. It was great to be around, and like you said, there's actually not a lot around like that anymore where you can. It's unfortunate, but like a family like environment like that. Sean from the Scumbags of Wrestling podcast mentioned on here that all your training can be seen on the production line, which is a feature, I believe, on his YouTube channel, the Scumbags of Wrestling podcast. So check that out. And John also just mentioned on here that he's been at the factory, which I've seen him there before, and he's seen you outshine some of the students. So that must feel good to see stuff like that. And I know I have as well. Like it's really awesome to see like how far you've come from when you started and like kind of everybody's perception on you, and now to look at you now, like what you're doing, like the DDPY, and like what was Tyson's crazy challenge last month that you took upon yourself to do? Find the time in your day to go and do all that.
It was crazy. That's an understatement. So, when things shut down, like we were reopened again and at the dojo for August and September, and then we had to shut down again. Yeah, look at those veins. Yeah, look at that guy. He's getting jacked. I have never said that about myself before, so I'm just having fun. That's so funny. But we went back in August, and a whole bunch of new students, and then some of the other ones too. And I never, when the shutdown happened, I mean, my goal was to show back up whenever the dojo opened up again and not have missed a step. and to look physically like I was ready to get back in the ring. I didn't want to miss anything, but the gym shut down and everything else shut down. So I started doing the DDPY, the DDP yoga, every single day. At the end of March, I decided, it took me a couple of weeks to lament not going to the gym and lament not going to the dojo. And I just
Which we should add, you picked up the DDPY originally. Was it from going to Tyson's school and doing it with Sarah?
Well, funny thing is, I bought the DVDs about 6 years ago, and I watched them once.
Yeah.
And,
did you do any of it?
Once.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
literally once. So I was mentally already. It's weird how my brain works, but I remembered all the moves. By the time Tyson would consistently have Sarah Fortune, level 2 DDPY instructor, come into the dojo. At the time, it was every 2 weeks, I think, and now in August and September, it was every week. So that was really my first taste in getting it, consistently. And then once everything else shut down, I knew there was a workout that I could do that would help me continue to build upper body strength. But more importantly for me, and again, I've had so many injuries in my life, back herniations in my disc, knee surgeries and stuff. I was going to just use that time to then do more DDPY so that I could do the things I couldn't do while I was getting thrown around the ring all the time, because I just didn't have enough time to do it all. So I focused 100% on DDPY, did it every day. And next thing you know, I'm beyond flexible now. I've strengthened my core and all my ligaments and tendons, and I've done so much work, and I've progressed so much just since the pandemic. So that even when we shut down and came back in August and September, I was, in my opinion, running circles around a lot of the new people, and some of the other people that I'd worked with too, not necessarily leaving, Jesse and behind or anything like that. But I mean, I was keeping up with people that I used to look up to, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And that was exciting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so now I'm, on the path to become a DDPY instructor.
Let's talk about that. Is that something you ever thought, obviously, no.
No. And again, so what's my future in pro wrestling? I have no idea, right? You and I'll have fun probably for years down the road. And if I can continue to take bumps, I'll take bumps. If I can get in the ring and help some of the younger people get over, by, being whatever opponent they need me to be, whether it's here, whether it's in, London.
And that was starting to come for you, I think. You were getting bookings other places. You went down to Border Town and you're in that Battle Royal, and I think other promotions were starting to talk with you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I've made friends across the province, and I think there was a challenge put out to me yesterday for another wrestling promotion when they open up, so I can go out there and kick the cadets' ass if I accept the challenge. But it's realistic for me. It's probably not something that's going to be long term, beyond working locally and having fun and hoping, because my son wants to be a pro wrestler, being the soccer dad for pro wrestling, and having to drive my son to London every couple days a week, every week, once he's able to start fully training in a few years. So that'll be an amazing experience for me. But DDPY and being an instructor, knowing how much it helped me, and knowing the very real injuries that I've been able to overcome, and not just survive in a wrestling ring, but like I said, now when I go there, and all due respect, I'm thriving when I'm there, and maybe if we'd have gone 3, 4, 5 months straight, my body would have been beat up again and hurt, and I would have needed time off. I'm sure, at my age, that's the way it is. Right.
For sure.
But I am in phenomenal shape right now. And I don't mean just I'm pretty flat right now, but if I flex and come out of a workout, I see things that are different in me, and that's fine. That's only cosmetic, and will help for, the believability in the wrestling ring. What's most important to me right now is how good I feel, how unbelievably pain-free I am. For the first time in decades, I'm not living with chronic pain. And I never thought that was possible. That to me is the ultimate goal. The fact that I can walk 10 kilometers a day with my kids to help them survive this pandemic, because not only am I their parent here, I'm their instructor, I'm their counselor, I'm their best friend, because, hey, you know, we are living with each other, and this is who we've got to, you know, isolate with. So when I can walk, you know, 6-7 kilometers at a time with one kid, come home, have something to eat, and then grab the other kid and go for a long walk, and we listen to music and do all that kind of stuff, man, I'm living my best life. That's everything to me. And I owe a lot of that to you for getting me started on this path, to Tyson for opening the door for me, to Tyson Slack and Adrian Rende at the YMCA for taking the time and extra time and the care that they've taken with me for personal training. And then with Sarah Fortune and the DDPY program, like, for me to survive this pandemic. And this year has been brutally hard on me, mentally and emotionally, especially around the pandemic start point.
I don't think a lot of people see that. If we can talk on that a little bit, like, I think people just look at you as like a counselor, and like they see all the things that are going on right now in the world, and like, what's your message to those people? Like with what you've dealt with this year, me knowing what you've dealt with this year and all the things you've went through.
Well, so I'll lay the groundwork. I'll try and do this in 90 seconds or less, just because, you know, I want to leave it open to whatever you want to talk about. But
sure.
You know, a year ago would have been my daughter's last suicide attempt. So for years, my wife and I lived with the trauma and always having to pick up our phones every time it buzzed, because this might be the one, right? And after a number of suicide attempts, it's now been a year, thankfully, of attempt free for my daughter. I even had to run out of a wrestling show in London. Like, I was still in spandex, and I was getting calls from paramedics and police from my house, and I had to pack my shit and run. Right. So that's a awful feeling to be too afraid to get involved and immerse myself in anything because I might miss a call. And I missed the call that day. So that was a really scary time for me, because I don't have my phone in my spandex. But anyway, as the holidays finished up last year, my wife was in a very, very bad state. A lot of that is a result of living with the trauma that we deal with. An eating disorder had taken over, I mean, strongly, which she'd always really had, I think. And she's, you know, willing to admit that and talks about it publicly, that she's kind of always had it, but it was in full force by the end of the holidays last year. So while everyone was going back to school, she ended up in a car accident, and it really started to go downhill for her physically. And we almost lost her a couple of times between, you know, the eating disorder, the toll it was taking on her body, the head injuries from the accident, head injuries from passing out from being malnourished, all that stuff. So she finally got into a treatment facility, and her intake, and she was going to be gone for 4 months. So her intake was the same weekend that everything shut down. So I had to drive my wife to Guelph with my kids, say goodbye to her, going into a facility. And because of COVID and the restrictions all started that weekend, it was the first weekend of the March break, that I basically had to walk away and come back and be alone with my kids as the pandemic took over. So as an elected official, my emails are blowing up for months because everybody is scared, and we're all scared, and none of us know what the outcome is going to be. But I'm also trying to manage a household now, full-time, alone with my 2 kids, one of whom I don't know if they're going to go off the rails and attempt suicide again. I don't know if my wife's going to get better. I don't know if the blood clot is going to take her out. I don't, you know, so all this stuff was going on for me at the start of the pandemic as well. And I lost wrestling, and I lost the gym, and I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I just knew that for a 24-hour-a-day dad, who had to be, you know, the online, the coach to help my kids learn online, you know, at the drop of a dime when everything changed. I had to be their best friend. I had to be their counselor. I had to, make sure they were both doing well. It was a lot. DDPY helped me through that. That really gave me something to focus on every day, because then I knew I had my hour and a half to burn my body out, to get a lot of that energy out, to focus, to watch myself progress, which allowed me to continue to see something positive every day, which helped get me through all of that. So it was a brutal year for me emotionally. But, I've learned over the years in sobriety. I'm also 10 plus. I also had my 10-year sober anniversary in the middle of that alone.
Congratulations.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But I learned over all those years that there's only so many superpowers in my toolkit, right? And so thankfully I was able to compartmentalize a lot of stuff, process a lot of stuff. When I really needed the time, I was able to give myself the time to process things and to feel things, to really truly feel them, not mask them, and move on, because my kids still needed me. It might have been 10 minutes later, it might have been 15 hours later, but whenever they needed me during that time, I had to be strong enough and I had to be mentally present. So I just had to keep on going. So DDPY really helped with that. It really gave me something to focus on that was good for my mental health as well as it was for my body.
That's awesome. Is it going to be something that you used like going forward as a tool with like other people that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I decided to become an instructor. Because I don't think any of us really know what
the benefits are. I was just talking to Tyson Slack about it last night. I was like, do you think people are like still finding benefits out? Or like, he said, no, the people who know what the benefits are, and like know what they're doing is and how it's benefiting them.
Yeah. And that's, so for me to be able to share that with people who haven't yet figured some stuff out.
I couldn't wrap my mind. I only got to do it a few times when I was there down at Tyson's. I couldn't wrap my head around it, but like it's always been something, like, especially now with not going to the gym and everything right now, it's been something that's on my mind to do, and it's just one of those things. I think like you said, I just need to clear an hour out of my day to know that I have that hour and just kind of do it.
Well, lucky for you, as part of my training, I have to teach some people some stuff.
Oh, there we go.
So I'll be knocking on your door for some of that too, and hopefully that kickstarts you.
Yeah,
and gets you motivated, and you can see and feel the benefits. Because
I'd love to have Sarah on the show sometime, because I know she's probably done a lot. She's had the opportunity to go on the Jericho cruise. Was she showing people like stuff on the cruise, or was she just there for a vacation?
No, she was teaching. So there's a great photo of her on stage like leading DDPY with Dallas and Darby Allen.
Yeah.
So it's like Darby and Dallas and Sarah.
Darby's doing yoga in his jeans, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's in some of the workouts that I watch. So with the app, I have access to like all these new workouts. I just did one this afternoon that Dallas just recorded 2 days ago. So he's always doing new workouts.
That's super cool. Have you met him? Have you talked to him? Or
no? I've got the benefit of him responding to me on social media and following me on Instagram. So
he's pretty supportive of all the people who kind of support what he's doing, eh?
Oh yeah. And a lot of his he spends time every week calling people that are subscribers to the program as well. But I don't know if I skipped through that by signing up as an instructor, because eventually I'll end up meeting him and we'll end up getting to do some work together once border restrictions are reduced and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But, if he gives me a shout out or calls me in the meantime, that's pretty rad too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time tonight. It's been almost an hour now. I've had a great talk, and I appreciate you joining me tonight and sharing some of your story. And it's been very much appreciated. Do you have anything to say to the people out there listening?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess in these very trying times.
we're all going to have hurdles, and never, ever, ever underestimate the pain that you're feeling right now. To me, that's the most important thing. It doesn't mean wallow in it, but it means acknowledge it and own it. So we're all suffering right now because of what's going on in the world, and that's real. And don't let what other people are writing online make you make your pain less valid. We're all struggling with different things, especially through this particular time. But no matter what your struggle is, own it, acknowledge it, feel it, but then use that as your building block to move forward, to know what that pain feels like, so that if by chance you ever get back, start to backslide, where you can get to again, and use that as your motivation to not ever want to get back there. But right now, the most important thing I can say to people, I think, is to just be real in what you're feeling. Own it, be honest with it. And if you're going to have a couple of rough days, have a couple of rough days. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to stay in your pajamas for the day. Give yourself permission to eat a whole bin of ice cream if that's what you need to do to get through the day. But then the next day, wake up and see the new opportunities. See the new opportunities to learn a new skill, to be successful at something. And no matter how small that victory is, celebrate that too. Just like you get to feel the pain, you get to feel the satisfaction of a small victory. And if that means you're excited because you baked something for the first time, or you took a walk on a day when you thought there's no way in hell I'm ever going to go outside with the weather like that, and you did it anyway, celebrate that. Own that. Be proud of yourself, because we're all surviving. We're all doing the best we can at any given moment, and allow all of that negativity to wash over you. And I think most importantly, don't take on other people's garbage. Let them deal with that. Worry about yourself. Do what you've got to do. And if you're able to help somebody, help somebody. If you're able to say something nice to somebody, do it. And if you can't, that's okay too.
For sure. Well, Brian, I want to say thank you so much. Your friendship, setting all of our differences aside, it means the world to me. You've really taught me a lot throughout just even the last 4 years or 5 years that I've known you. Just whether it be with in politics, it's always been something that I've never really been educated in. And whenever you talk to me about it, you're never you never take a side, and you're always honest with me, and I appreciate that. And you've always been somebody who I can turn to if I need advice on something. And again, I just appreciate everything you've done for me, for Chem Valley Wrestling, and our community as a whole. I want to say thank you so much for being one of those counselors that Sarnia can look to, and know that you have our back whenever we need you, because it's really important to have people like that in our community.
Thank you, my brother. And the door is always open if you ever need anything. And that goes with everybody else too who's listening. My inbox is open, as they say, and don't ever be afraid to reach out and ask, no matter what it is. I might not have the answers, but I'll always listen.
Of course. And that means the world. So, Brian, I'll let you go. I don't want to take too much more of your time tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Take care. All right, so that was Brian White joining me here on episode 7, lockdown day number 7 here in Ontario. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and if you gave it a share or subscribed on YouTube tonight, you rock. You're awesome. I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll do this again. Actually, we'll be back again tomorrow, so I don't know who's joining me tomorrow, but I do have somebody lined up for Sunday. Corey James Mitchell is going to be joining me on the show, so I'm really looking forward to that. We'll have a really good chat about his music career. And yeah, everyone stay safe out there, stay positive. And like I said on the last episode, if you need anything, don't be afraid to reach out. Have a great day.